I promised you in my introductory video that sometimes I just give you a good laugh, so that's what tonight's about, tonight's video. So we'll get back to Moonshine Over Georgia, my novel based on actual events of my grandfather's law enforcement career, available on Amazon. We'll get back to that later. But tonight I wanted to tell you about my illustrious football career. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I had never played any kind of organized sport whatsoever. I weighed about 105 pounds, soaking wet. I had a unique combination of athletic skills. I was extremely slow and extremely skinny. I was about the same height I am now. I think I was 5'9", now I'm 5'11", 105 pounds. One of the slowest human beings you'll ever see to this day. I think I've actually gotten slower. But we got a new coach at our high school down in South Georgia, and our school had not won a football game in like 3 or 4 years. But we got a coach named Leroy Jackson, and Coach Jackson had won a state championship up in North Georgia at a school bigger than ours. So we thought, man, this is really going to be something. And he was a good coach. But I decided, it just hit me like a lightning bolt. I didn't really love school. I didn't really love classes. I kind of didn't want to go to more school and college. So I thought, Eureka, I'll play in the NFL. I really loved the Atlanta Falcons. I was a huge fan back then. Steve Bartkowski and Greg Berzina and all those guys in the late 70s, early 80s, the grit splits. So I'll just go out for football and then I'll get really good and then I'll play in the NFL. I didn't think about the fact that you don't go from high school to the NFL. I didn't think about a lot of things when I was a sophomore in high school. So I go out for football and I'm absolutely terrible. I was the worst player on one of the worst teams in the state of Georgia, at least historically worst teams. We got better that year, but no thanks to me. So I never played. In fact, we had a very small budget for athletics. So the new coach wanted new uniforms, new helmets, and they only had enough money to get so many of those. So when it came time to hand out equipment, I was so bad, they had ran out of the new cool white helmets. And so they gave me a leftover red helmet from the old days. So everybody on the team had a white helmet and I had a red helmet. And my red helmet was too big and it had the canvas straps in the top instead of the foam pads like all helmets had, even by then. That was 78, 79, I think 78. So my helmet would bounce all over my head. My football pants were way too big. And I had about this much belt hanging off because I had to cinch my belt all the way up just to keep my pants from falling down. And you've seen movies like Lucas and Rudy about these underdogs that go out for the team and everybody falls in love with them, but they're not really that good. Those two guys were freaking Mike Singletary compared to me. They don't even know bad football compared to me. So we had an away game, and single A schools in Georgia at that time, none of them had any budget. So there was no visitors locker room. We were playing an away game and we had to change into our uniforms in the gym, just on the floor. Just either sitting on the bleachers or sitting on the floor and changing into our cleats, whatever. So the coach had gone somewhere on his own money, had bought all these canvas army green duffel bags from an army surplus store. They were used. And so we were to put our street clothes in there. That was our locker. And then put our football uniforms on. And then when the game was over, we were going to swap it out. We put our dirty, sweaty uniforms in the same duffel bag and get our street clothes and put them back on. No shower. So one green duffel bag, the coach held up. He says, okay, guys, this is going to be the valuables bag. And he said, put your watches and wallets, your money clips, whatever. I don't think anybody had a money clip, but put your valuables in here. So everybody throws their stuff in that valuables bag. He ties it in a good solid knot, closes it up, and says, here, Skates, you're going to hold the valuables bag. Because he knew I wasn't going to play. Well, at the same moment, he introduced us to his friend, who was a photographer from somewhere in the area. He said, this is a good friend of mine. I've known him for years. He's going to do some action shots of you guys on the field during the game. I hired him as a photographer for the yearbook. So we get out on the field, and I got my valuables bag. I've got one job, and I'm going to really do that job. So about the second quarter, this photographer guy sidles up to me and says, hey, they may need you in the game. You want me to hold the valuables bag? And I'm like, oh, no, sir. Coach told me to hold it. He said, okay. So he leaves. So halftime, we're actually ahead. For the first time in 3 or 4 years, we've got a lead at the half. I think it was 3-0. So third quarter is 6-0 us. We're actually winning the game. We may win our first game in 3 years. The whole team, the whole sidelines is buzzing. The photographer goes back over to me. He says, you want me to hold that valuables bag? And I was like, no, Coach told me to hold it. And he said, well, you guys are ahead. He may need you in the game. Well, that appealed to my ego. I was like, sure, he's going to put me in any minute. So I'm like, I remember thinking this. I was thinking it through. I wasn't a dumb kid. I was just a kid. But I said, okay, the coach said he was a good friend of his. He'd known him for years. So, yeah, I might have to go in the game. Okay, yeah, you hold the valuable bag. So I give this guy the valuables bag. So the game ends. We win, I think, 6-3. I look around for the photographer to get the valuables bag back. No photographer, no valuables bag anywhere. I turn over the benches. I look under the Gatorade jug, which I was very familiar with as the worst player. I look everywhere. There's no valuables bag, no photographer. The coach is being interviewed by the local paper, which was a big deal back then. People still read newspapers in local communities back then. So he's standing there, and by the way, he was a big fire plug of a guy. He could bench press 500 pounds. He had an underbite like a bulldog. Coach Jackson, I'm pulling on his sleeve. Not now, Skates. He's doing an interview. We don't want me bothering him. Coach Jackson, it's really important. About 3 times I do that. Finally, he goes, all right, before I tell you this was South Georgia, our school, and this is no kind of a racial statement whatsoever. It's just a fact. It's a demographic fact. Our school was about 70% African American, and our team was probably 75% African American. So finally, about the 4th time I pull in the sleeve, Coach, I really need to tell you something. He's like, what, Skates? So I go, I lost the valuables bag. Dude, all the players on my team go, oh, man, Skate done lost the damn valuables bag, man. Shit. These guys were all over me. That was their watches, their wallets, everything was gone. So the coach says, well, you better, by God, find it. So I'm looking everywhere. I go back in the gym where all the duffel bags are with street clothes. I can't find it. I don't want to go through everybody's stuff. So everybody changes into their street clothes. Everybody's mad at me. Everybody's seething. The coach is mad at me. So the team rides home in a school bus, yellow school bus. Then there was an assistant coach that always followed the school bus with all our gear in it. He had a yellow Ford pickup with everything was yellow, with a camper top on it, and he pulled a little U-Haul type trailer, but it was his trailer. So we just throw all those duffel bags in the back of his truck. Well, the whole team's riding home in the school bus. I'm riding in the back of this truck with a camper top, with my arm down in these sweaty jocks and everything else, trying to find the valuables bag. Long story short, we had to stop at a McDonald's to eat, and nobody had any money. The coach was the only one that had his wallet, so the coach has about the whole team a single hamburger was all he could afford for the whole team. And so we finally get back to our field house, back at our home field, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we dump all the football stuff out, and the valuables bag is inside one of the bags with the dirty pads. It was at the very bottom. The valuables bag was only about that big. And so everything was there. Nobody lost anything. But for a little while, my name was Mud.